This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by liner notes. Learn from the hundreds of musicians and industry professionals I've spoken with for The Unstarving Musician on topics such as marketing, songwriting, touring, sync licensing, and much more. Sign up for liner notes at unstarvingmusician.com. It's an email newsletter from yours truly in which I share some of the best knowledge gems garnered from the many conversations featured on The Unstarving Musician. You'll also be privy to the latest podcast episodes and liner notes subscriber exclusives. Sign up at unstarvingmusician.com. It's free and you can unsubscribe at any time. This is The Unstarving Musician. I am Rabonzo. This is my podcast. It features conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals and me, all intended to help indie music artists better understand the marketing, business, and creative processes that empower us to do more of what we love, make music. And welcome to another episode. Thank you for being here and letting me into your earbuds or on your car speakers today. I appreciate you. Speaking of appreciation, if you love what I do here at The Unstarving Musician, please consider supporting us. There are many ways you can do so. You can follow us on your favorite podcast app. You can tell a friend. That would be great. You can leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, or you can visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor. And if you've never been there, but you've heard me talk about that page on the website before, crowd sponsor, you'll find things like my book, The Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs, recommended resources, membership options, and a tip jar, among other things. So yeah, check it out. We certainly appreciate it. I want to tell you before we get to my guest, who is a good one. He's a longtime friend. I'll mention his name right now. Frank Salazar. He is a longtime friend, great musician. But before we get to Frank, I want to tell you about a couple of pieces of new music that are out. We are going to talk about some new music with regards or related to Frank for sure, but a couple of other things. Dave Pedrick, whose podcast I was recently on, and who was also on The Unstarving Musician not too long ago, has a new track out on Bandcamp. It's davepedrick.bandcamp.com. Dave's new track is called A Soundscape. No, it's called Summer, which is a soundscape celebrating the arrival of the summer solstice. And Dave has done all kinds of music. This one is, as the description implies, it's a soundscape. So if you're into that soundscapey music, check it out. It's pretty cool. And then JJ Lovegrove out of the UK has a great new track out called The Lines We Leave Behind. You can also find her on Bandcamp at jjlovegrove.bandcamp.com. I'll leave a link to her new track in the show notes. It's pretty amazing. And then I also want to tell you about the winner for the drawing for a copy of The Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs. The drawing was related to the 2023 listener survey, and people who participated got entered into the drawing for a copy of the book. And Ari Kapp, who's a listener and one-time guest, also won a copy in the totally random drawing. It wasn't very scientific. I just sort of mixed things up and her name came up. So I haven't even told her yet. So Ari, congratulations if you hear this before I tell you. But so thanks for playing. And those of you who didn't know anything about it, you don't listen to the podcast enough and you're not a subscriber to Liner Notes. You could have won a copy and you could have helped me out in the process. Tell me what you were interested in by participating in the listener survey. And you know what? I'll go ahead and leave a link to the listener survey there, but the drawing part is over. You missed that chance, but you can still help us out. I'll leave a link. Actually, I know where you can find it. I can tell you, and I'll leave a link, but it's at unstarvingmusician.com/survey. My guest, Frank Salazar. He is a long-time friend and a former bandmate. He's been playing guitar at least as long as I've been playing drums, which is forever. He's worked as a full-time musician, gigging musician, studio engineer, sound designer, and is currently a technology manager for RealFX, an animation studio which has been for 30 years creating animation for every major studio, and they've done some original stuff as well. His son, Ian Salazar, was featured on the podcast way back in 2018 on episode 77, that is what I consider an early episode. We're up to, I believe this is going to be 268. That's a lot. Frank has a new single out, as I mentioned. It's called Save Yourself, which I love. And he's working his way up to releasing a full-length album, which will include the track Save Yourself. Frank is into heavy music, I would say. It's a progressive rock style with lots of layers. It's interesting stuff. You should check it out. You can find him on Bandcamp. He records under the name Spigots, which is the name of his would-be band, Spigots. He performs everything. I'm pretty sure everything you'll hear on the album, which is pretty cool because it's like a rock tune, a series of rock tunes, actually. And yeah, check him out on Bandcamp, spigots.bandcamp.com. I'm just like all Bandcamp today, but I'll leave a link to that in the show notes. So we talk about his new single, Save Yourself, the forthcoming album, and the related concept. That's right, it's a concept album that is basically slowing him down, keeping him from releasing this project. So that's what he tells me. I think life is slowing him down a little bit. That just happens, man. These things take time. We also talk about Spigots, of course, his alter ego, Edmund Burgundy, which will make a little sense when you listen to the conversation, and makes a little sense when I tell you that you can find Frank on Instagram at Edmund Burgundy. We also talk about the evolution of his creativity, the problem, or his perceived problem of not being a singer. He sings all of his tracks. I think he's pretty good. His studio recording toolkit, we totally nerd out on this, or Frank does, nerds out for me, which I thought would be cool I thought it was cool, and I think some of you will too. We talk about his why, as in why he is being creative again, why he's creative in general, and I ask him about his plans, if any, to perform in the future and to perform. We talk about the possibilities of performing his new stuff and more. Yeah, he's a lovely guy. We sound very subdued in much of our conversation, and I was talking to my wife, Sammy, about listening back and editing it, about how subdued we sound, and I said, I think it's because we're so well acquainted. But we kind of sound stoned, but I'm pretty sure he was not stoned, and I know I wasn't. He was actually in the middle of his workday taking a lunch break to talk to me, so thank you, Frank. That was very nice of you. All right, so again, find Frank on Instagram at Edmund Burgundy and on Bandcamp, spigots.bandcamp.com. Here is me talking with my good pal, Frank Salazar. Remind me who Edmund Burgundy is?
Edmund Burgundy is my alter ego who plays bass in a band that's not together anymore called the Burgundies.
Nice.
So everybody in the band was a Burgundy. There was Sterling Burgundy and KC Burgundy and Reginald Burgundy.
And of course, Edmund.
And Edmund.
That's amazing.
And of course, I got Edmund from Blackadder,
which I'm not familiar with.
That's one of my favorite TV shows. It's a British comedy from the 80s.
You know, I thought it was vaguely familiar by name, maybe through you and your wife, or
yeah,
I've seen it.
Yeah. Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson was the star of it.
Okay.
And he was Edmund Burgundy, or sorry, Edmund Blackadder.
Got it.
Am I too compressed?
No, sounds fine. It's so funny. I was thinking just a moment ago that this week's episode that drops tomorrow, I literally have no effects, no corrective anything on it. And I'm like, it sounds pretty good to me. And I was listening to a podcast that I maybe have heard once, but I was listening to the guy's voice, and I just noticed, I'm like, oh, he sounds pretty compressed. But no, you sound fine.
Okay, because I've got a tiny bit of compression on it, but I'm seeing the gain reduction meter moving more than I'm expecting.
I'm just thrilled that I'm talking to someone who has a sound treated room, nice mic, worried about compression. It's funny, man. You know, I talk to all these musicians, and a lot of them, I mean, I'm sure you can imagine, they just like, you know, they're talking to me on their trying to talk to me on the microphone on their laptop or something. I'm like, no, no, we can't do that.
Right.
I'm really close to just rejecting those when I start. I'm like, we can't do this. We have to reschedule if you can improve that. But no, it's cool. I like it. So I want to talk about Save Yourself. It is your latest single, right?
It is.
I mean, sometimes it's hard to tell. Mostly on Spotify, it's hard to tell, but unless somebody wrote to me. But so I really like it, obviously. Um,
Thank you.
and yeah, it's kind of right up my alley. And I've been going back and listening to some of your other stuff. But yeah, tell me about how long were you working on it? What was the inspiration? And for those who have not heard you before, which could be the majority of my listeners, maybe talk about the musical influences for it too that sort of culminate in it.
Oh, wow. I didn't know what we were going to talk about, so I don't have anything prepared. This is going to be interesting to see what I say. Um, so it's actually a really new song for me because usually what happens is I like every musician that I know in modern times, from my kid up, they've got 100 or hundreds of little noodles on their iPhone recorder, the voice memo recorder.
Right.
And so periodically I'll put something down and then I'll forget about it for 2 years or whatever. And then I'll go, oh God, and do the laborious task of going through and listening to every single thing. And, you know, of 100 voice memos, there's 5 or 6 legitimate ideas that are like, I should work on that. And this was one of those songs. So at some point in the last 3 years, I wrote the riff, the main riff, and the chorus chords, which are basically the same thing. Um, and then I found another part, which is the bridge, that was the same sort of thing, where it was just an acoustic guitar sketch. And when I heard those, I tagged them, and like the day after I tagged them, I listened to them again and went. I immediately knew exactly what the song should sound like, how it should be constructed. Um, I mean, I heard the whole song in my head except for the melody, and so I sat down and arranged it like in an hour. Those are the best songs because some of my songs I've been working on for 10 years. This thing was like 20 minutes. I had it arranged from beginning to end. I laid down in Logic with a click track at about, I think, 118 beats per minute, the whole thing. And then I went on a business trip to Pebble Beach. Yes, I'm name dropping there. No, actually, that's fun. I've been there multiple times. It's fun, and I had a lot of free time. So, and I just happened to find this week cleaning out my backpack. Was on the hotel stationery, the little notepad thingy, are half the lyrics to the song that I just scribbled down, and they just stuck in my head. So the lyrics to this came really easily too, and the melody was real quick. I usually come up with those in the car driving. So basically, I had the acoustic sketch, was listening to it on the business trip, came up with most of the lyrics and the melody on the business trip, came home, and it was February. So, I only get to work on stuff sporadically because of life. I'm not a professional musician anymore, so I don't devote nearly enough time to it. But I was able to pretty quickly put it together. Actually played a rough demo for Ian and Beth, my oldest kid and my wife, and immediately said, "Oh, it's not fast enough." So I had to re-record everything at a faster tempo, but that was pretty easy. So I got the bass laid down, and then just I'll work on it at lunch at work if I can. I mean, I can't. I'll mix and edit there. I can't really play there. I can program some there, but I knocked this one out. And then all of the instrumentation took just a day or two if you put it all the time together. And then the lead was difficult because I don't play all the time anymore. So I can perform all that stuff, but performing it together, because I just don't have the dexterity at my age, or the just I don't play like I used to, 5 hours a day. I play 5 hours a week if I'm lucky. So I kind of had to I had to do trickery. So I had to play it in sections and edit it together, which, even Jimmy Page did that kind of crap. So I don't feel too bad about it.
Yeah, with people helping him do it.
Yeah,
Like,
right. Just, doing it in chunks. But beyond that, it came together really simple.
and that may be the big appeal to me, that it came together maybe easily compared to things you've done in the past. At least it sounds like it.
Yeah,
And in a way it keeps it, at least to my ears, and at least on the surface, maybe it's more complex underneath it, but it's kind of a simple rock tune.
it is. That's exactly what it is. It's not some ridiculous prog thing where that builds from 0 to 10 over 6 minutes,
Have I
which I'm known to do.
right? I've heard some of that. And did I have I ever told you my prog rock story about
No.
my whole, like, what is this? I don't even know what. And for the longest time, I was like, it must be a scene out of Prague, and then
Okay.
I'm serious. And then I'm like, oh, I get it, progressive rock. Yeah,
No, that's horrible. But that's funny.
it's true. So you started dropping things on Bandcamp and elsewhere. Maybe sort of Bandcamp has been the central hub where I see
Mhm.
most of your stuff, like in 2021.
Yeah, that's probably right.
And is it more than one full album and and a number of singles, or are there two full albums? I forget.
No, it's one full album that I recorded 20 years ago,
Oh
and
wow,
then or 23 years ago now.
wow.
Then this newer stuff. I used to have a lot of stuff on SoundCloud,
Hmm.
like dozens and dozens of songs and ideas, and I pulled them all down maybe 6, 7 years ago when I started working on the current thing that will be an album. I keep saying it'll be done by Christmas. And then as each Christmas passes, it's like, well, maybe next Christmas.
Okay, so I didn't realize, is Save Yourself going to be part of the album?
Yes.
And how, like, where are you at? How many? Yeah, where are
Yeah.
you at in the project?
So the 5 songs that are up on Bandcamp are 5 songs from the album.
Okay.
And then there's 5 more and maybe 6 that I'm currently working on. Um, one of them is done, but I'm not going to release it yet. Um, that's not out there. Trying to hold some back for when I put everything up on Spotify and all that stuff. The big centerpiece of the thing, which is this 9 minute progressive song that's very Pink Floydy. Um, I've done everything but the vocals for the middle section of it. Everything else is done. I just have to finish the vocals and mix it, which I might try to do this weekend since we've got a vacation day.
Oh yeah, but Holiday Monday, yeah.
Yeah, we'll see. And then the other 3 songs, one of them is half finished. But no, I haven't sung anything else. Actually, 2 of them are in that state. And then the final song that I want to do is still a bunch of sketches, because everything is these long things that are very moody, and I want to have one more rock song on it, like uh, Save Yourself is. That's just 3.5 minutes. Doesn't mess around. It's just a very traditional song.
Nice. And so some of the singles are out besides Save Yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many of them are there?
Well, there's 5 songs out right now.
Five? What do you mind sharing the titles so people who check it out can sort of connect the dots, in case they can't when they're just listening?
Yeah, if I can remember them.
Here, hold on. Let's pull them
uh,
up. Let me pull them up.
no, there's Let It Shine,
I remember that one.
Save Yourself, Dayglow Halo,
Oh yeah.
We are, and there's one more that is not coming to mind.
Just blurt it out later if it comes to you, or we'll
No,
figure it out.
I'll pop up
And
Bandcamp here.
and I'm sure I won't forget if I didn't catch it in reviewing our conversation here, but the name that your work goes under on Bandcamp is Spigots, and so it's spigots.bandcamp.com for people who want to check it out. So you've been, like you mentioned, the first album that I would have seen, you said you wrote 20 years ago. And my memory is you've been writing music ever since I've known you, which has been decades now, right?
Yes.
how,
Yeah.
how does your creativity of the last year, or on this project, I guess, that you're working on now, compare to past years? If you can, like, draw some comparisons or changes or evolutions.
Sure. The stuff I'm doing now is a little more complicated. It has a lot more chromacity in it. Um, you probably know I'm a huge Muse fan, and
Mm.
I and in his early stuff, and he still does it some. Matt Bellamy does a lot of chromatic stuff where um, you walk down, every step with a different chord that's still in that mode, and I love doing that kind of stuff. And I feel like on this new stuff, I've gotten really good at that, figuring out clever ways to have walking bass lines against walking riffs that shouldn't go together, but they do.
Mm.
The last song is All in Your Head,
Okay.
and that's the best song I've ever written.
Um,
That's by far my favorite song I've ever written. When Barrett Lewis, who is a musician that I greatly respect, gave me really high compliments on that song, which was like put me over the moon
nice.
because that song that's one of the ones that took a long time. I've been working on that thing for like 6 years.
Oh, wow.
Keep changing it and changing it. Never happy with it. That's that.
How do you know Barrett?
I've worked with him for since the early 2000s. He's a one of those guys that is creative in a million ways.
Mm.
Like he is an extraordinary guitar player, but you would never know that because his job is, well, he does composition, but his main job, as long as I've known him, is he's been a graphic artist and um, creative director now.
All in the arts.
Yeah, great dude. And the other thing that's different about what I'm doing now is I came up with a concept, and it's a really depressing concept, but it is a concept. I have multiple members of my family that have dealt with mental illness their lot during their lives.
Mm.
My mother suffered from depression, like debilitating depression at a point in her life. Like when I was a little kid, there was a period of 6 to 9 months where only time I ever saw her was in the hospital,
Oh, man.
and it was because of depression. And then my sister took her own life, uh, mental illness. So this record is loosely based around them and other people with that are struggling. And the the main character of this story is a girl that gets mixed up in drugs and is spiraling down that path toward the inevitable bad ending, but maybe things change, and that's kind of the story. So I've got a common theme, and the music. I mean, the lyrics are all pretty much downers for most of the songs, but you know that's just what the project is, and I decided I'd do that, and I'm sticking to it. And sometimes I'm like, God, Lee, I wish I could just wrap this thing up, but that's the problem with not really ever having deadlines. You can noodle forever.
Yeah,
So
it's funny you mentioned that. I got in my head not too long ago that I wanted to record this cover song from my youth with our mutual acquaintance and a longtime friend Lance Necker, and
Oh, really? That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, and but I had read something, with those tips on recording projects, and they mentioned the timeline, of course, and I was like, I haven't done that, and it's showing already, early into it. Just one song, so I feel for you.
Yeah, it's because I've got so much of it done. The biggest problem is I'm not a singer. I mean, I could talk to you. The process to make me sing sound good on recordings is laborious.
Really, you
Yes,
sound good on your records too.
because it's work. I mean, I'll do 30 to 40 passes of a song, and then I'll go in and comp those down, and then I'll pitch correct them all, and then I will use it like Metatune or something on them as well, just to but I don't overdo it. So it's not like robotic,
Hmm.
but it's laborious. So, and I have to get myself in the frame of mind to sing anyway, because I'm not a
Sure.
singer. So that's the hardest part of it all.
Yeah, I know. I never asked, and I likely never will, but when another mutual acquaintance of ours, Chris Responti, when he helped me with the whole, mixing and mastering of my songs, of course, I'm sending in vocal tracks. And that's, as you know, not something I've done a lot of, and only really got serious about it in more recent years. So I'm trying to be, a better singer and everything. But, um, I wanted it all to be whatever came out. And of course, I look back on it and go, boy, I wish I had another, could do that over. But uh, well, I've always wondered, like, I wonder if he was pitch correcting and what do they call it with the, with not with vocals, but with quantizing
Yeah.
parts. But we did talk a little bit about, um, it, maybe he didn't do much of that kind of stuff or any at all. But we did talk a little bit when I was doing the drums that I was trying to uh, try hit the snare consciously a little um, behind the beat, and I somehow got on him with the whole um, timing tempo of the music, and was it going to mess this up or that? And he kind of gave me a mini lecture just on what tempo actually becomes once you start performing or recording. That it gets a little blurry. Maybe he was sort of trying to say it can kind of become what it is. Just it is what it is. Unless you, I assume, unless you want to go trying to make everything perfect, which you probably could guess about me. I'm not really into that
Right.
style of doing it, but I can feel for you. But I had no idea. So for you, the difficulty is largely, is it mostly the execution of the vocal parts, or well, you talked about some of the, I guess, maybe the studio trickery facet of it,
Right.
but it sounds like a lot of it is also the execution. You're trying to get pieces in the way you want them to, or to be up to par
Right.
with where you'd like them to be.
It is. Yeah. It's being satisfied with what I'm doing, because I mean I've been playing guitar for, I don't know, 45 years, 47 years, something ridiculous like that.
Mm.
So doing the guitar parts, although sometimes I have to work at it, it's a natural extension of my being, but singing is not. So it's really laborious, and just writing lyrics too is it's a chore. If I That's why I used to have so many instrumentals, because it's like I just don't want to deal with figuring out lyrics for this and
Oh yeah,
finding somebody to sing it.
yeah, that's funny. But I could see that the lyric part would be hard. There's the whole like trying to find the inspiration to do it, and then there's just the practice of doing it right, like the doing it enough where it's not so hard because you have done it a lot.
Right. And that's the stupid part about it is I know it's just like anything else. You have to practice. So once I get into singing, and I'll be practicing driving home or whatever it is, and get a few weeks of singing under my belt, it's so much easier. But it's like dieting. I just can't do it. It's so easy to not do it.
It's always easier not to do the things we think we should be doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If I sang every day, I'd probably be a very good singer, but I don't I don't
I'm
practice it
trying
enough.
to. I'm trying to, and that's been more recent. And they always say that warm up every day, warm up every day. I had someone to the extent of like first thing in the morning before you start talking, and I'm sure that's common among serious singers who are just at that stage where they're trying to keep their voice in shape. Yet, I've known a couple of people. Well, a lot, I guess I've met and worked with a few that are really great singers, and they confess to like they don't they did that stuff, but they don't do it.
Mhm.
They know they should, just the exercise part of it.
Right.
But talk about the tools you use for recording in your home studio, like the software, the gear, or any facet that feels important to you or that you think might be important to sharing with other people who are maybe getting into recording or just want to compare notes.
Sure. So I use Logic. Um, I was a Pro Tools guy forever. That's something that I used to be a recording engineer. That was my job. And I became a sound designer and then a mixer, and I did film work and all kinds of stuff like that. But when I decided to start recording at home again, Logic was cheap. I'm a Mac guy, and I instantly fell in love with the way they're how easy it is to do MIDI work as opposed to Pro Tools.
Hmm.
And so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go with Logic. So um, I have a couple of nice microphones. I've got a 414. I've got an AT 2020, which is if anybody's looking for a cheap Swiss Army knife mic to get started with, I can't recommend that microphone enough. Um, it's like under $200 and it sounds great. And you can use it on vocals. It sounds really good on guitar amps. Just a good mic for not a lot of money.
Nice.
I recently upgraded my IO. I got an Apogee Duet because I don't track. I had an old Focusrite Scarlett, which has got lots of inputs and lots of preamps, but it's just me. So I decided to upgrade that because the clock and the duet's better, and the preamps are really good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And the duet has the Bob Clear Mountain front end symphony channel, which is it's got a little software emulated preamp EQ compressor module going in. So it's got a quote unquote outboard module on the front end that's just software,
Mm.
but it's got like it just sounds good. And I can already tell since I got that. Save Yourself is the first song that I've done with it, and the vocal quality is just that much sweeter. I had to do a lot less in the mix, although I'm one of those ridiculous guys that might have 14 plugins on a vocal channel. So just
You-
with little bitty subtle things, because you start overcorrecting it. I'm sure that somebody that does it all the every day, like I did 25 years ago, could probably get the sound I'm getting with two plugins, but I kind of overdo it. In the box, everything. The only thing that I do that's not in the box is the vocals. I don't have any guitar amps anymore. I
oh,
do all
really?
it's all Sims. I mean, I have a little practice amp, but I don't record with it. Everything's Sims. I've really gotten into for heavy guitar sounds the oh my gosh, it's the Plugin Alliance. They have a like an effects rack thing that's just a bunch of amps and cabinets
Mm-hmm.
that straight out of the box don't sound like digital. I don't have to do very much to make them not sound like an emulation. And there's lots of those out there now, but this particular one just sounds really good with the way my fingers work.
What's it called again?
Um, Plugin Alliance is the brand. They have like a they're a clearinghouse of plugins. I can't open up Logic right now to pull it up because it'll screw up the Zoom feed. but they have like they kind of rep all these different boutique plug-in manufacturers, and I have a subscription where I get access to all of their plugins.
That's cool.
It's their own. It's the BT. Shoot, I
We
can't think.
can we can add it
But
in afterwards. I
yeah,
think
yeah,
people would like to see that in the show notes. That'd be
yeah.
cool.
But it immediately, like the first, because I have way too many amp simulators that I've collected over the years, amplitude stuff and um, the stock Apple stuff, and all the waves sound fake to me except for a few, and you really got to dial them in and put all these post production plugins on them to make them not sound fake. And this one out of the box is like a plug in and go, oh my God, that sounds like I'm sitting in front of a Marshall.
That's crazy.
And then I have a bunch of wave stuff and the Oak Sound. Have you ever heard of them?
Mm-mm.
They have a plugin called Smooth. They have Spiff. I think it's Spiff and Smooth. I wish I could open Logic and look at the names, but
I'm writing them down. I'll
they're
have to do later.
fantastic for mellowing out stuff.
Mm.
And they're really transparent, and everybody uses them now that I know. I mean, it's like a given that, like on the electric guitar bus and on the vocal bus, you're going to put Smooth on there just to tame everything, because it's a dynamic multi-band compressor that just does what what a multi-band compressor of old would do. I'm probably not explaining this right, but it's more granular, so it grabs more stuff more quickly, but in a more forgiving way.
Mm.
So it's kind of like uh, putting aloe vera on your sunburn.
That's a
You
good
could
analogy.
deal with it,
Yeah.
but if you put that on there, it's just so much. You just feel so much better about things.
Nice. I like that. I'm sure there's some of the nerds listening to this are going to appreciate it and understand what you're talking about. So let's see if this one works. I kind of was taking some notes here, and I'm looking at some things I was going to ask, and we sort of covered them. So hopefully this isn't one of them. But so there's a lot of reasons for someone like you to write and record, but I wanted to throw this out there to ask you to talk about some of your reasons that maybe transcend or go beyond the obvious facts that that you play, you sing a bit, and you're quite good at recording. So again, what are the reasons that you're doing it these days?
Because I mean, I do it now because I have a creative hole in my life. I used to be I started out in the music business and then moved into post production audio. And every day I was doing creative things. And then 15 years ago, more or less, I made a career change into being more of a manager and a technical supervisor. I became a tech guy, and I was no longer really involved in any creative process other than problem solving. So I immediately needed a creative outlet. So I started playing again because I played a lot. You and I played a band together. Um, but from right after that until 20 2009, maybe, so almost 15 years, I did play any. Well, I was in a cover band for a short period of time, but I didn't really play much,
Mm-hmm.
and I missed it. So in 2008, 2009, I started playing with the Burgundies, and then I got back into writing. Used to keep a guitar by my bed, would play every night for a little bit. Then I started doing all those Facebook live streams of just me
Oh
noodling
yeah,
around late at night,
yeah. I forgot about those.
what which were was fun. I got great response, and that's where I would work out ideas. And so I just got back into it because I've got to do something creative, and this kind of hits both things, that technical side of my brain and the artistic side of my brain together. And it just gives me an outlet that I have to have that I don't have otherwise.
Yeah, that's not far out of what I expected to hear from you, but very, very good. And I didn't realize how the time frame of this kind of transition that you made in your work life. I knew that you'd kind of become more of a technical, um, had more of a technical role and less of you'd gotten out of the recording
Yeah,
and some of the visual stuff, but certainly have continued to have a strong appreciation for it. Obviously, okay. So here's the last one. I think you sort of already, in a way, you already answered it, but I'm just gonna ask it anyway because
sure.
maybe maybe if it is like nah, there's still something that kind of comes out of it in other ways. Like you were just saying some things that made me think, yeah, I should go ahead and ask. But so you haven't performed lately, right?
No,
Okay.
it's been a long time.
So again, I realize you kind of maybe indirectly answered this, but do you have any plans or interest of doing it in any form in the future?
I would love to do something. I don't know if I would play this music. If I did this music, I would have to have a singer. Um, I've asked a couple of people to sing this record, and um, they declined, mainly because of time commitment. Because I can't afford to pay anybody. I mean, this is just a labor of love. I've had lots and lots of people say, "Well, you can do it. You can sing it. You can do it," and I can't. I'm not a good enough singer to do this live.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah. So when you say you'd asked a couple of people, do you mean to do it live?
well, no, to actually sing the record,
Oh, got it. Yeah.
because I'm really proud of the songs. I'm not a great singer, and if you put a real singer on this stuff, I think a lot more people would listen to it.
Well, I think you have, one thing I thought some time ago when these new things started coming out that you do have a voice quality that is conducive to playing the style of music that you do, and it's not off par with what a lot of music that we bought in the past either. So I think it works. I mean, I hear you. It's like it's not your comfort zone,
Right.
but yeah, I think you sound great for what it's
Thank you.
worth.
Thank
Yeah, for what it's worth. Yeah. Well, I hope that you do perform at some point and get to perform this album. I know that would be tons of fun for you, and I can certainly appreciate the challenge. I'm trying to remember. It's funny that the name is eluding me because I actually found the collaborator of the second song I recorded a couple years ago now on this website. And okay, his name is Peter Rand, but that's not helping me remember the website. Anyway, um, it's just a bunch of musicians who are dropping basically demos on there, and they leave. You don't have to, but the general idea of it is to leave your demos open to collaboration with vocalist, bass player, whatever, or just some
you.
instrument that you don't play. And it's kind of a now this it wouldn't necessarily be a solution for performing, but like in the future, if you're looking for a singer that you want it to be one way and just don't feel like that is the way that you would sing it, you can browse a lot of people's work on there, and it's all people do. Most of these people, actually everybody on there has some sort of DAW at home recording setup, so they're dropping source files, stems, whatever up there, and it becomes pretty easy to collaborate either on the website. But when I did mine, I found this keyboard composition that Peter had done, and I was like, I really like that, and I was just inspired to try and put something around it, and not much had happened with it yet. And I took my collaboration with him just offline, so I grabbed what he had started with, asked him if he could make some changes, and then added drums and had a couple friends, as had bass and guitars and stuff. But it might be kind of a fun way for you to
Oh,
to
that's really
look.
cool. Yeah, put that in the in the description or whatever you do when you follow up.
I will. And there's another one too, and I wonder if you could actually do. There's a few of these now, but
I remember Chris Flynn back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
He did that, and I can't remember the name of the site, but it was the same kind of deal where people would put up stuff that needed bass, and then he would play bass on it, or he would put up a track and they'd build around it. He did that a lot in the early aughts.
Oh wow, yeah. One I was trying to think of, not the first one I was talking about, but there's one called Air Gigs, and I wonder. I haven't heard of anyone doing this, but I wonder if you can actually trade with people, because Air Gigs is about like, you need a lead guitar on here or you need some vocals, I'll do them for you, and here's what I charge, and if they like you enough, they hire you, and
right.
You get your song completed. But I wonder if maybe there are some people that would trade. But I will put those in the show, that other one in the show notes. It might be kind of interesting for you to check out. It's a whole ecosystem. The website's a little dated, although I think he's upgraded. I haven't been on there in a while. But anyway, just being able to find the people's a lot of fun. But
that's cool.
This conversation was a lot of fun. I appreciate you coming on. I know long ago when I first started the podcast, I wanted to talk to you, and you have so much more going on now, to just like all this work that you put out alone.
Right.
A lot of fun, probably, to sort of think about or have some questions thrown at you about, I hope.
No, it's awesome.
Okay, so yeah, spigots.bandcamp.com, and I know that much of your stuff is out on all the streaming services under Spigots, right?
Yes.
Cool.
SPIGOTS exclamation point.
Oh, I'm looking at the logo right now, and I never stopped to realize or think that the exclamation point is part of it. It's Spigots.
It's not in the URL, because you can't have that in a URL.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wait. So, do you have a website?
I don't.
Or you have
just the one at Bandcamp.
Cool. All right.
So,
well, I think that's a good place, and hopefully, don't hate me for this, but at Edmund Burgundy on Instagram too, which you drop some stuff there. People might find kind of fun. So
sure, that's awesome.
All right, Frank, this is great, man. Thank you for making time, and I'll hopefully see you soon. And you guys, please come out to Querétaro sometime and see us if you have the time. Yeah, we'll have a good time, I promise.
Yep. Thank you, Rob.
All right, man. Talk to you soon. That was good, right? Frank's great. A sweetheart of a guy, one of my best friends, for sure. After our conversation, Frank sent me a short list of plugins he uses in the studio, which he did not discuss during our recording. So if you want to totally nerd out, if you'd like that list, that bonus list, email me at robonzo@unstarvingmusician.com. I will send it to you. And lastly, I so wanted to mention that Moser Cafe here in Querétaro recorded my recent performance with my blues ensemble Lluvia Azul for a Facebook Live, which you can watch on playback, on demand. It's not bad. It's not perfect. And in fact, has a couple of outright sloppy moments, but it ain't bad. So I'll put a link for that in the show notes. I hope you will enjoy it. If you do not yet have a website for your music, check out Bandzoogle. It was created to help musicians and bands build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Bandzoogle features amazing design options, a commission-free store to sell music, merch, tickets, and more, and it provides detailed fan data. Try it free at bandzoogle.com. Use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year. Thank you again for listening. If you enjoyed this episode of The Unstarving Musician, please follow us on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can leave us feedback at unstarvingmusician.com/feedback. I would love to hear from you. Find links for people and things mentioned in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love. If you're interested in starting a podcast but have been procrastinating, stick around for a couple more minutes, because I want to tell you about Podcast Startup. It's a program I started working on months ago but didn't quite finish. Well, I'm putting the finishing touches on it as I record this for you. If you feel you need a little help getting your podcast started, Podcast Startup is for you. It's affordable, info-packed, and ideal for new podcasters. With Podcast Startup, you'll get an amazing step-by-step guide for getting started, lots of practical tips, and direct access to me for the unexpected, the deep questions, the I need a little more help kind of stuff related to podcasting. Look, I've published, recorded, and worked on over 275 podcast episodes. I'm constantly studying to improve my own game, and I want to start helping others start and sustain their own podcasts. Did you know that most podcasts don't make it past their first few episodes? That's right. They start, they stall, and then they die. Sustaining a podcast ain't easy. It's commitment. Poor planning and poor expectations are a recipe for a fast burnout and fade out for podcasters. This is exactly the kind of thing Podcast Startup was designed to help with. If you're intrigued, if you want to start a podcast the right way, go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to sign up for the beta launch. Wait, what? Beta launch? Yep. This is all new, and for a limited time, you can get a screaming deal on Podcast Startup. It'll always be well worth the price of admission, but the screaming deal is only available for a limited time. Go to unstarvingmusician.com/podcast startup to learn more. Start your podcast the right way with Podcast Startup by me and the Unstarving Musician. All right, one more time. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.